day of live and local sports talk.
And that is the whole problem with aliens. You just can't trust them. Occasionally you meet a nice one, but usually they turn out to be some kind of big lizard.
The Skraby Show starts now on 97.3 The Fan.
Hello and welcome into the Skraby Show for February 24th, 2026. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. I'm kind of all by myself, I guess. Well, I'm definitely all by myself in the studio, which is nothing new for the Skraby Show, but today I was all by my lonesome in the studio. It's very lonely. I don't think people understand how lonely it can get in studio when you're by yourself. And then you're just like a fish in a tank when people walk by and they just poke on the glass and they say, hey, and then they walk by. It's just very sad. I usually like having someone in here with me, even if it's Chris. Even if it's Chris, I like to have him with me. Tonight, we're going to talk Matt Waldron. We're also going to talk about the catcher position. I forgot that I did all this research about the catcher position, trying to, it seems like some are unhappy with the catcher position, but as I've said in the past, to find a catcher that can hit and play defense at a high level is very tough, very tough. So you can't really expect for them to be able to find a catcher that's going to hit 300. But I went through like the past 5 seasons with the Padres since 2020. So what is that? 6 seasons? 6 seasons. And I will tell you what kind of catcher the Padres have over the years. And I think I went into this, maybe I should look this up in the break, but I went into how AJ Preller spent money on catchers, and they don't ever really spend big money on catchers. So, the catching position for the Padres is what it's what it is. They're never going to go after someone like a JT Realmuto or who else is out there? I mean, obviously, Cal Raleigh is not available type of thing. Anyway, but first, I have to talk about how crazy social media is right now. Everybody knows the State of the Union is happening tonight. I'm obviously not going to be able to watch it because I'm doing here, I'm doing here. I am here, but the internet, I would I don't want to tell people to stay away from the internet, but the internet is wild right now. There's a bunch of predictions going on the internet. There's a bunch of people saying, there was a huge snowball fight in New York that everybody is upset about. The internet is not a very good place right now. So everybody just lock in on the Skraby Show and everything's going to be good. I promise. I am not going to steer you in the politics direction because honestly, I don't really want to go there myself. But Matt Waldron, Chris says, Kalshi going to be wild tonight with State of the Union. Kalshi is one of those predictor market apps. I'm actually very curious to see what happens with Kalshi tonight because I think this is one of those things. And if we're talking sports betting, that's kind of what Kalshi is. I feel like it's so much easier to fix something. And we talked about this a couple months ago on the Skraby Show because there were bets made on the U.S. invading Venezuela. And so someone put a bunch of money down 2 separate times, and it seems like they had information. But Kalshi, I really think this is going to be bad because how easy is it for you to say if you're a speechwriter for Trump and you know exactly how long it's going to be or you know what he's going to say? Why can't you tell a couple people to put some money down on Kalshi and then boom, you got it? I'm not really into the whole Kalshi thing. As you can tell, Trevor says he doesn't bet events like the State of the Union, which I guess is fair because you don't really know what's going to happen. But a lot of people are going to be betting on the State of the Union, and I am looking forward to seeing the figures on how many people bet and what they bet on and all of that. So anyway, enough of the State of the Union. But I wanted to bring up the Kalshi thing because that was a good point. Matt Waldron, his chances took a hit today. And I'm going to, I had my fun earlier. I'm joking. And it seems like some people are not understanding that I'm not making fun of Matt Waldron. I am making fun of the situation. I actually feel pretty terrible for Matt Waldron because this is a guy who's trying to make the team. He's trying to make the major league roster, and a guy who's tasted what the major league level is like. So I would assume that this is a huge setback for him. There's no real timetable for how long he's going to be out, but if you haven't heard, and I'm not just saying this to make fun of him, but he had an infection. He had to get some surgery on a hemorrhoid, which again, I am not making fun of him. I got a tweet from someone saying, normalize hemorrhoids like normalizing appendectomies. Like I was the problem. I was not saying that Matt Waldron did anything wrong. What I'm saying is that this, to me, unless he comes back and he's able to, finish out spring training strong, I think to me it doesn't look good for him. I don't know that he's going to be able to make the sort of impact that he wants to make on the coaching staff before the season starts. And it's even more unfortunate for him because he got injured here in the beginning of the spring training when you're going to be forgotten throughout the rest of spring training. And there's so many different guys that can take that place that for me, I really unfortunately think that this is it for Matt Waldron. Now, I don't think it's it for him in a Padres uniform, but once he goes on waivers with no options left, that either means he's on the major league roster or nothing for the Padres. And I do think he's going to be claimed on waivers. I do think he's a guy that some teams see as someone who can help them. Ruben Niebla has worked with him a long time, and Ruben Niebla put together, a pretty solid plan for Matt Waldron in 2024. Then last year just did not go Matt Waldron's way at all, even in the games that he did start for the Padres. But it would be sad for me to see him go, just because I have been a fan of Matt Waldron. I think that he is someone who just wants to do his job, keep his head down, work hard, and he kept the Padres afloat a couple years ago. I know that's not part of the "what have you done for me lately" kind of thing, but Matt Waldron, I think, still has something to give to this team, and we talked about it even last night. We were talking about how he needs to work on his secondary pitches so that he doesn't have to rely on the knuckleball all the time. And I remember something that who was it? Sam Dykstra of MILB.com told us about Matt Waldron, because I asked about, is he going to be at the major league level again with the Padres? And he said, the knuckleball is it's a very weird thing, because some days it's going to fly great and it's going to do the things you want it to do. It's going to dance all over the place. And some days you're just not going to get what you want out of it. And so when you have a pitch that's kind of unpredictable, it's hard to know if you're going to be able to start a guy like Matt Waldron 25 times a year and see what he gets. And so that has always stuck with me with what Sam Dykstra said, because it does make a lot of sense. And when you're on the mound and things aren't going well, and you have to, in your knuckleballs not finding the zone anywhere near the zone, you have to rely on that fastball. You have to rely on that sweeper that Matt Waldron has. And he said his sweeper, he could dot it, he could put it on the corner with the best of anybody. But is the fastball and is the sweeper good enough to get by? And I don't think on this roster it's good enough. I think on other teams' rosters, Matt Waldron could get a shot, but they have too much going on right now with the pitching depth. And I do think he'll get claimed. Cole thinks he'll pass waivers. Trevor doesn't think he'll pass waivers. I think that is 1,000% probably I shouldn't say 1,000%, but that is 100%. He's probably going to be let go. He's probably going to go and be placed on waivers. He's probably going to get claimed on waivers and probably going to another team. So it's just, man, And going back to the whole privacy concern of the whole thing, I really don't think all of us needed to know what exactly was going on with Matt Waldron. We didn't need to know exactly what was going on, so I can understand if there was some frustration from Matt Waldron on that side, because I wouldn't want a bunch of people knowing what's going on back there. It's kind of a private area. I don't really want people to think about that area on me. It's not for me. But there you go. We're going to go through the catchers in the next segment. So we'll talk about the Padres catching position. Luis Campisano, again, we've talked about going to have a huge opportunity this year to prove that he can be the guy that everybody needs him to be. And he's already shown it to us once. But Freddie Fermin, where does he rank among other catchers that the Padres have had in the last few years? Also, Bryce Johnson. Let's talk about him real quick, because Bryce Johnson was a big part of the team last year. Bryce Johnson was someone that I think a lot of players or fans, came to like as the season went along. But Bryce Johnson, just because you had the job last year doesn't mean you're going to get the job this year, especially with some of the guys that they brought in. And Bryce Johnson he played right field today. And he is, last year, he had a batting average at the end of the year, 342. He only had 76 at bats. He had an 817 OPS. I think he showed that he could be the last guy on a bench on a major league roster. He plays good enough defense, but I think that last year he showed that he can be a guy you can keep at the major league level all season long. And so far in spring, he is 3 for 8. So he's hitting 375 with one double. Obviously, it's just spring. He also stole a base today. But his job, he's going to have to really work hard to make this team. I think that he'll probably end up on the opening day roster because they know what they have in him. And I think he's earned it and he deserves it. But after that, he's going to have to be nails every time they call upon him, because you got people in the back breathing down your neck trying to get that spot on the roster. And I think Bryce Johnson's a good addition to this team, but the competition also is something that I think is a good thing for Bryce Johnson. Not that Bryce Johnson's sitting there like thinking he's going to be some guy who is so good and he's overinflated his skills and all that. I think Bryce Johnson is someone who can help in certain specific situations. All right. When we get back here on the Skraby Show, we will talk about the catcher position and just go through the last maybe 5 or 6 seasons and see what kind of catcher do the Padres usually have, and where does Freddie Fermin rank? That's next on the Skraby Show.
Home
You know it's a slow time for the NFL Network when they are replaying a Week 14 game between the Titans and the Browns. And the reason they're replaying this is because of Myles Garrett getting some more sacks towards his record. But I can't think of a worse matchup to replay a game for. Browns and Titans. Ugh, that is bad. I also possibly said something on the chat that I may regret, and so I took it back immediately. And that was, if the Padres win a World Series, I'll get a tattoo. I take it back. I have several tattoos, but I don't know if I want to be the guy who says it and then has to put his money where his mouth is. So I took it back. I would never want to be the guy. And I see this all the time. People say, oh, I'll do this if this happens. And then it happens and then you don't do it. Can't be that guy. So I took it back immediately, and I'm saying it on the air. So when someone says, well, Skraby said it, I took it back, everyone. Okay. All right. What else? Oh, yes, I did have someone on the chat. If you want to watch the show, you can just go to YouTube and search 97.3 The Fan, or search at The Skraby Show. You can also go to Twitter at Matt Skraby. But they asked, how can we get an email to you? And I just saw it during the break. Anyone can email me, matt.skraby@odyssey.com, AUDACY, and Skraby is SKRAB as in boy Y. matt.skraby@odyssey.com. If you have any questions, I will do my best at responding to things, but let's go to my inbox right now. Let me tell everyone that I have 6,140 unread emails, which probably gives a lot of you anxiety. And it kind of gives me anxiety, but I learned at a certain point, I am just never going to get my email under control. And I just have to accept it, because that is life. How many people have 0 emails in their inbox? And I don't even know how that's possible, because I just get so much random stuff, and it's all stuff that I've signed up for over the years. I don't know. Getting on top of your email is very difficult. Very, very difficult. Anyway, matt.skraby@odyssey.com. Now, catchers with the Padres. If we go all the way back to 2021, because last year, Freddie Fermin hit a 244 average, and he had a 617 OPS, 14 RBIs, 2 home runs. Now, that was only in 42 games because he came to the team after the trade deadline. But when you go back to 2021, 244 is actually a pretty good batting average in the history of Padres catchers here in the last 5-6 years. But going back to 2021, Victor Caratini he caught 116 games. He had a 227 batting average, 7 homers, 39 RBIs, 632 OPS. And now this is going to be a theme for some people, or it was a theme for me, at least, when I was looking through this. But we all gave Austin Nola a really hard time. I didn't give Austin Nola a hard time, but Austin Nola actually has been one of the best catchers in regards to batting average over the years for the Padres. In 2021, he hit 272. And he had a 716 OPS in 56 games. I will take a 272 batting average for a catcher. He had 29 RBIs, 2 home runs. So that's a solid catcher season, but you're not going to see 272 again. You're going to see one higher, but you're not going to see 272 outside of that. Now, in 2022, Austin Nola caught he appeared in 110 games, 251 average, 649 OPS, 4 home runs, 40 RBIs. Another pretty solid season for a catcher from the Padres. Jorge Alfaro, remember him? He played in 82 games, 246 batting average, 667 OPS, 7 home runs, 40 RBIs. So that's a decently productive season for the catching crew of the Padres in 2022. 11 home runs and 80 RBIs. That's not so bad. It's not so bad. And then you get to 2023. And this is the year that Austin Nola really struggled after I think he got hit in the face by a pitch in spring training. but he hit 146. So we know what happened to Austin Nola. But here's where I think we all are at with Luis Campusano, because we saw it happen. But in 2023, Luis Campusano in 49 games hit 319, had an 840 OPS, 7 homers, and 30 RBIs that season. That is a really, really good season for a Padres catcher. The only problem was Luis Campusano was behind Gary Sanchez, the Sanchez. Remember when he came in, 72 games? Now his batting average was 218. His OPS was 792, but Gary Sanchez hit 19, count them, 19 home runs for the Padres in 2023, 46 RBIs. So not a great batting average, but very good power numbers and very productive in 2023. 2024, we have Luis Campusano again. He dipped 91 games, 227 average, 642 OPS, 8 homers, 40 RBIs. And the reason that Luis Campusano didn't get as much time is because Kyle Higashioka was on the team. Higgy, the Higgy Bank. Everybody remembers the Higgy Bank right there next to the Western Metal Building. 84 games, 220 batting average, 739 OPS, 17 home runs, 45 RBIs. It's a pretty solid back-to-back year for a catcher position for the Padres. One guy had 17 home runs in 2024. The other guy had 19 home runs in 2023. So AJ Preller doing his job. Here's where we come to 2025. Luis Campusano, as we know, did not have many at-bats during the year at all. He didn't get a hit. I think it was less than 40 at-bats. Diaz had 106 games under his belt, 204 average, 607 OPS, 9 homers, 29 RBIs. Now, Freddie Fermin, 244, 617 OPS, 2 homers, 14 RBIs in 42 games. So after going through all of that, I want to tell you that Freddie Fermin's 244 batting average is probably one of the better batting averages for a catcher with the Padres in the last 5 or 6 seasons. Because even if you go back to 2020, Austin Nola hit 222 in 19 games. So my original goal going into this was, are we comfortable with Freddie Fermin being an everyday catcher for the Padres? Is he going to be able to hit well enough to A, keep his position behind the plate, and B, help the team at the 9th spot? Because I'm assuming that's where he's going to hit at the 9th spot. And so I think that with a full offseason, and we've talked about it in the last couple of weeks, Freddie Fermin is 30 years old, but he was sitting behind Salvador Perez for many years, and maybe not many, but for a couple years. And so he doesn't have the same kind of mileage on his body that other catchers do at the age of 30. But I will take, if Freddie Fermin in a full season hits 240, he's got a 700 OPS, hits 10 home runs, and drives in 50 guys. I think that is a solid season for a catcher on the Padres. I am not, and that's not to mention that, hey, Luis Campusano could be someone this year that finds whatever he was doing years ago, he finds it again. So you could have 2 good catchers, but I'm just going to count on Freddie Fermin putting up similar numbers to what he did last year. I'm not mad at a guy who has a 700 OPS as a catcher. They're not really meant to hit lots of home runs and extra base hits. If you don't know, catchers are sometimes the slowest guy in the field. So a double for a catcher is, not as guaranteed as a double for a position player. But I'm fine with this. I am fine with Freddie Fermin being the starting catcher this year, being the guy who's going to take the brunt of the work. And as long as he can stay healthy, as long as he can keep working with this pitching staff, and as long as he has some clutch hits, I think everybody's going to be very happy with Freddie Fermin. Now, again, if Luis Campusano is able to find what he had a few years ago, that is icing on the cake for the Padres. That's all they would really care about, is having him just get back to something where he's contributing. Chris says the Royals were really high on Fermin. I think he's going to surprise a lot of people this year. I agree with that. I think that everything that I read after the Padres traded for Freddie Fermin, well, maybe not everything, because there were a lot of angry people out there because they did send back a pretty good haul, Berger and Kolek, and Freddie Fermin came back, but I don't think we're going to have any issues. Eric says, stay healthy, show up every day, and get along with the pitchers. It's really just his job. Freddie Fermin. The Ferminator. He has also got a great nickname. I mean, you can't have a better nickname than the Ferminator. And last year, he did start with getting some clutch hits down the stretch. So I am really excited for what's going to happen this year. Is anybody worried about Freddie Fermin? Does anybody think that they're making a mistake by going into the year with Freddie Fermin as the full-time starting catcher? Let me know. You can email me, matt.skraby@odyssey.com. You can also go to the chat on YouTube. Just search at The Skraby Show or 97.3 The Fan. When we get back, we're going to hear some clips from spring training in Benham Woods. Also, when I first read the title of this, I immediately hate clicked. But the title is Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce facing lawsuit over their Kansas City steakhouse. I hate clicked. And then I realized that maybe I shouldn't be so mad at him. I'll tell you what happened here when we get back on the Skraby Show.
Ben and Woods.
Skraby Show, broadcasting live from the Bill House Studios. We know how. 97.3 The Fan. Final segment of the Skraby Show. It's been kind of a strange day, I gotta say. I woke up, wasn't on the wrong side of the bed. I just woke up a little bit late. I usually wake up anywhere between 6:30 and 7 in the morning. Sometimes even 6, and I just sit there forever. But I woke up at 8 this morning, and it just throws off my entire day. I'm not sure if other people are like that, but it just throws off my entire day. And yeah, just didn't like it. Just didn't like it this morning. And all day I've just kind of been like, it's been just a strange feeling day. I don't know. Anyway, all right. Let's go into some of what happened with Ben and Woods this morning at spring training, because they have been getting all of the luminaries, I think, as Chris would describe them, all the major players in the Padres organization. And I think a lot of people are very curious about Nick Castellanos. So I want to play some things about Nick Castellanos, because it will probably give you a little bit more of an indication on who he is and what he's going to bring to the Padres. So Ben and Woods asked Nick Castellanos on learning first base.
I think I can do it. Talking with AJ before I signed, it's something that I believe I can do. Now, that being said, I am not saying that it's not going to take a lot of work and there's not going to be some growing pains that come with it. But I'm definitely somebody who's not afraid to work. I had to learn how to play the outfield in the big leagues.
True.
Amateur, I was a shortstop. I got drafted. Detroit put me kind of all over the place because my bat was ahead of my glove. So, A-ball, I was at third. Double-A, I was in right. Triple-A, I was in left. Big league debut in left. And then my rookie year, I'm back at third base. So I have like 500 games or so on the dirt. And then at that point in time, the way the Tigers roster was set up, we traded for a kid named Jamer Candelario, who at the time, our front office really believed that this switch hitter could have an incredible career, and they thought that I was athletic enough to be able to play right field. So 7 years have gone by. I've been playing right field, and now, honestly, like Craig just said, like, hey, you ready to go back into the outfield? I'll do whatever you need. I'll play first. I'll play left. Tatis needs a blow. I'll play right. I'll DH. Whatever.
And that's exactly what we want to hear. I don't know that he was going to sit down and be like, well, you know what? I only want to do one thing, and I only want to do it if it's my way or the highway. He doesn't sound like a guy that's stuck in his ways. He doesn't sound like a guy who's not willing to change or do things a little bit different. And hopefully this new scenery for him is going to give him a reset, or what did they say in the press conference today? A fresh start. And I think that does mean something to me. Giving a fresh start to someone can reset things. And so when you've been with a team like you were at the Phillies, you're getting paid $20 million a year. You have a lot of fans that either hate you or love you. It's a lot of emotions, things like that. I can see when the coaching staff starts to sour on you a little bit, you start souring on the coaching staff a little bit. I can see why going somewhere else completely across the coast. I mean, as far away as you can get from Philly and coming to a place like San Diego, I think will be good for him. I think the fans here will rally around him as long as he shows that he cares and he tries hard or he works hard. That's all we care about. And he wants to bring a World Series championship to San Diego. So I think that we all need to give him a little bit of leeway, which he hasn't really done anything for us to give him leeway, but we have to give him a little bit of leeway once the season starts. Because, sometimes things don't start as quickly and as great as you want them to go. And I could see us fans being like, he's garbage. We made the wrong signing, blah, 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 blah. We're going to have to give him a little bit of time because he is going to be on this team. I don't think they brought in Nick Castellanos to not have him on the major league roster, at least on opening day. And I was walking this morning, my dog, and one of the neighbors who likes to talk Padres, we were talking about him, Nick Castellanos, a little bit. And he was like, well, I really didn't like what he, was saying in Philadelphia and when he said, and I was like, you got to get rid of that. Get rid of all of that. That is in the past. I really don't think AJ Preller and team are going to bring in a guy who's not going to be good for the clubhouse. I just cannot believe that they would do that. And you just got to give them a little bit of time. And I've been seeing this on the chat lately, but we had on John Kincaid of, I think it was 97.5 Fanatic in Philly. And you could totally see the difference in sports talk. He was all about getting into the weeds and not trashing Nick Castellanos, because he did say he was a good guy. He just said he was a jerk sometimes, and he didn't understand why he was a jerk. But we could see the difference in sports talk. I don't know how many of you out there listening will want us to be that way here in San Diego. I don't think that's how San Diego is. And I think that Nick Castellanos seems like a guy who would come in and just do his thing and get along with the fans. So Dominic makes a great point. If the team doesn't care what he said in Philly, then we definitely shouldn't. That is 1,000% correct. All right. Let's here is what he said about playing with passion and what happened in Philadelphia.
I think the biggest lesson I learned in Philly is that when I see something, I need to speak up. I need to, because if I don't, I swallow it. And then if I don't say it again, I swallow something else. And I'll keep swallowing until the point I can't no more. And sometimes when it bubbles over, it comes out quite colorful.
I can relate, actually, very much to that.
And so far, I feel like I've done a great job here. There's been some things that I've quick, and when you handle it in the moment, it's small, it's easy. It's when it starts compiling, and it just gets swept under the rug for months, sometimes years, and then when when it pops off, it pops off.
Bubbles over.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell a story that I've never told before, but it has something to do with the pressure building, and then when it pops off, it boils over. My way before radio, right? Kind of as I got out of college. So back in like 2009 or 10, I started working for this company, and it was an entry level position, and I graduated college in 2008. So I had a pretty terrible time with finding a job in 2008 with everything that was going on, economically in the United States. So I took the first job that I thought was cool, and I took the job because I needed one, and I just wanted to get into my adult career life. So the pay was awful, but I needed it. And so I did it. And then when I got there, I had never really worked in an office setting before. And so I didn't really understand office politics or anything like that. But I started burying a lot of things that I just didn't like. And it was mostly a lot of people I was in charge of updating websites. I was in charge of doing some video stuff. I actually traveled quite a bit, which was actually really cool in this job. But as Nick Castellanos is saying, you spend so much time in place and things build up. Like you get to a place where you've thought about it so much that your brain has a really hard time going back to the time before you built all this up. And so what happened with me at the job was like updating websites. We had a system. They would email me the change that they needed, and then I would send an email back. But it turned into a lot of people just coming up to me willy-nilly and confusing me, and I was trying to do my best to serve everyone and be the best employee that I could. So I just buried it. And I had this boss, and I still dislike this guy. And if he's listening, he knows. But he was one of the meanest people I think I've ever met in my entire life. I think he was one of those people that took advantage of maybe his position of power, not in a weird way, but in a way of I'm the boss. You're gonna do what I say type thing. So one day, about 2 years into the job, everything boiled over. And what did I do? I screamed and yelled, and I swore, and I went off, and it was bad. and I said many things that I probably shouldn't have said to my boss. And we moved forward from it, but it took a long time. I was very self-conscious about things for a long time. And that's when everybody else from work saw me blow up like this too. And it changed the dynamic. And so I say this long story to say that Nick Castellanos isn't lying. It changes the dynamic between people. And it's just not something that sometimes can be fixed. And so it's something in my life I think about all the time. And it's something that I think about going forward every day. Like when something happens at work or something happens in life and I have to go, don't let it build up. Say something. And sometimes I don't say something. Sometimes I do say something. But it's a skill that needs to be learned by everyone. And I don't know why I just went in that direction for the last 5 minutes, but I think it makes sense. I think having a fresh start makes sense in all of that. Let's go to Jake Cronenworth because we didn't ask him about Tony and I at FanFest. We had Jake Cronenworth on. We did not ask him about the Dodgers spending and everything. But the morning show was out there interviewing Jake Cronenworth, and they brought up or asked Jake, about leveling the playing field. And he has an MLB PA rep. So what he says carries a little bit of weight. Here's what Jake told them.
I think it's a very fair question. I don't think, fans should want their team to win.
Yes.
100%. And they should want their team to spend money on good players and put a product. And as you guys can attest to, you guys have been Padres fans for a long time. We're a perfect example of what that looks like. God bless Peter's soul, but he did things the right way. He signed guys and made a product on the field and built the stadium up and drove people into the stands. And look at where we are now. We're a bottom 6 market team in baseball, but
top
we're
10
also
payroll.
a top 6 spender in baseball, top 10. It's 72 sellouts last year. You look at all the successes happened over the last 6 years. I think it's a perfect example. Obviously, we're blessed with weather, but there's other factors that play into that as well. And I think a lot of it has to do with the products that's been on the field and how much we've won in the last 6 years.
Well, 1,000% is how much you've won in the last 6 years and the products that's been on the field. But he's right. San Diego is a perfect case study for how other teams can compete and can bring in big players and appease their fans and not be the Artie Moreno Angels owner who says, hey, my fans don't even want to win. They want affordability and they want safety. They don't care about winning. It's Jake Cronenworth. You can tell that he's an MLB PA rep because he speaks in that way. And he has, you can just tell he has knowledge on the subject, but he's 1,000% right. And I've been saying 1,000% a lot tonight. I don't know why that has entered my vocabulary, so bear with me, but he has seen it in Tampa, and maybe he was a little bit younger when he was in Tampa, so he didn't maybe understand everything as well. But he went from small market in Tampa to quote unquote small market in San Diego. And San Diego has figured out a way to make the Padres a huge money-making opportunity for people and huge opportunities for fans to get involved with the team. I think San Diego is a little different than most other cities too, because I've never been to a city where baseball is by far and away the number one sport. Now, I know when the Chargers were here, it was football and the Padres weren't as good, but I would really love to see, like, in an alternate universe, the Chargers being here while the Padres are good. I would like to see what that brings to the city, because there's a lot of baseball games and Padres fans are filling it up every single night. You think about the A's. The A's obviously have money. They're going to be in Vegas, but they don't spend a lot of money. You think about teams like the Marlins. They don't spend a lot of money either. And they're in a big city like Miami. That's not a small city. they are able to spend money, but they just don't. And I think that's baseball's biggest problem right now is ownership. I have to say, the baseball's biggest problem is ownership because these owners don't, I should say some owners, most owners don't want to open up the checkbook and spend more money unless they know for sure 100%, not 1000%, 100%, they're going to make their money back twofold. But there are other owners like Peter Seidler who said, come on, let's bring it in. Let's bring in the guys. Let's bring in Manny Machado. Let's bring in Eric Hosmer. Let's bring in, let's pay Fernando. Let's bring in Jackson Merrill. Let's get AJ. Certain teams can't do that because they will never have an owner that's like this. That was like Peter. And I got to give the Padres credit. They said they were going to keep spending where it was prior to the news of the sale, and they have. And AJ has been pretty creative in some of the things that he has done. So I think that's it. I think that's it for my long rant about everything Padres. All right, it's time for this.
What's annoying Skraby today? Let's find out. It's time for the Daily Gripe.
All right. Kathy has a Daily Gripe on the chat. Waymo cars suck. We actually talked about Waymo maybe last week. We talked about Waymo recently. Oh, because I saw Waymo. It was with Chris that we were talking about it. And I saw Waymo in San Diego. But I haven't seen a bunch of them because obviously we don't really live in a city where they're everywhere. But Kathy, tell me why you don't like Waymo cars. Is it because they just get in the way? Is it because they drive too slow? Does anybody know how fast Waymo cars drive? Do they just drive the speed limit? Or are they like 5 over the speed limit? Because with the way people drive these days, going the speed limit can be quite dangerous. I don't know if anybody knows, but it can be quite dangerous. So, Kathy, if you're still there, tell me why Waymo cars suck, because I would like to know. I did see like a video a couple years ago of a bunch of Waymo cars that just kept honking their horns in some parking lot where all of the Waymo cars were located. So that would be pretty annoying because a lot of people were woken up all night because a bunch of Waymo cars were just honking their horns all night. Which, if that was a prank, that's actually a pretty hilarious prank. All right. My Daily Gripe for today is when you don't tie your shoes or you don't notice your shoes are untied. My Daily Gripes so far this week have been very small, but everybody can identify with it. So I was walking downtown and my shoelaces came undone. And usually my shoes don't come undone. But here's where the gripe comes in. My shoelaces just dragged in puddles and I didn't know, and it was just bad. And so when I had to go tie my shoes, it was all wet laces, and it was just gross. So the Daily Gripe is when my shoes are untied and my laces are soaking wet and I have to tie them. Very specific, but there you go. All right, I'll be back with you guys tomorrow. Have a great night, everyone.